everyone, and happy holidays. Here you are. We're at TableTakes, sponsored by Gen Con. I'm Banzai Baby, also with Emma and Derek.
Hey.
And we got exciting news for everybody today. Not only is it the holiday season, but we have some presents here that I myself, in my noble generosity, 'tis the season, I have given to you.
You are TableTakes Santa.
I am TableTakes Santa, if you can tell by the hat. But yes, other than that, of course, gift giving, where you guys will not know what's in the boxes until the end of the stream. So
oh my gosh,
stick around if you want to know what's in these boxes.
It's not the flu.
It's not the flu. It's not the flu.
Unless you, because that's Christian's gift. He hasn't opened it yet.
No.
He is already sick.
He is already sick.
So it's probably not the flu.
It's probably not.
Okay.
Yes.
He already has that. So
he already has that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to get him a gift he already has.
I know. Right?
But yes, in other news that might be exciting for those who are shoppers, Emma, I hear that there's new fancy Magic the Gathering cards.
Yes. Well, not super exciting for shoppers now because they're not available yet.
Oh, I thought, my bad.
So the Theros set is releasing in the middle of January, but we have more information about the things that are going to be included in the collector booster specifically. We have fancy full art foil lands, constellation showcases, which are basically, there's lots of creatures, enchantment creatures with a fancy border that looks like stars. So it's really cool.
These alternate art ones feel very like nebula to me. Like, feel like a Hubble telescope, like we've discovered mana out in space.
Space. The things they're doing with the art of the cards and the borders of the cards, they're really pushing it from a visual perspective, and it's
especially for the collector stuff. Yeah,
it's been super fun. The lands are interesting, so we have some discussions about our feelings about these new lands.
Wouldn't be TableTakes if we didn't.
Yes.
So the new lands are basically just mana symbols. In the middle of kind of a star field, but it's pretty plain.
Well,
you
so
know,
if you ever wanted black mana nebula, then now you have it.
Right, yeah. And I mean, just like a skull on...
Isn't that what we all wanted, was a skull in space?
A skull in space.
Well, maybe they're trying to go for a minimalistic approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very minimalistic, but it feels... I don't know, when you see all of the Throne of Eldraine cards and just the amazing alternate art and the styles and the new Secret Lair cards that just came out, which I should have brought because Phil bought them, of course.
Did you get all of them?
Yes, the whole Secret Lair. It was an oops.
You sure you wanted to get the kitties? You sure?
What? Yes.
Yeah, of course she wanted to get the kitties. I feel like that's a given.
They're doing such amazing stuff with art. So just looking at it, they're kind of boring, first of all. And second of all, there's a very important distinction in Magic between mana and land. Like a land is a very specific an object that sits on the battlefield, is there and generates mana. So one of the things about teaching Magic is the fact that you have to tap a land to generate mana. Mana isn't this thing that you can see or hold onto. It's kind of this amorphous thing. So having it be pictured so big on the cards, it's an interesting choice, I would say. You have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks neat. I certainly agree with you that it basically just takes the idea of land and abstracts it and is like, yeah, whatever, it's a land.
Yeah.
But that's fine sometimes, especially I think for the collector's edition boosters, because I think that the art is actually neat and intriguing and fresh. Like, it's not my favorite land art by any means.
Yeah.
But it is so different from the other land art that I think it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want a skull in the sky. It's cool. The weird thing that didn't occur to me at all until I stumbled across a thread on Twitter that last night at like 2 a.m. I was unable to recover.
Oh, you went through the rabbit hole of Twitter.
Yeah.
The answer is it doesn't work very well. But there was somebody who was talking about how excited they were about the lands, like super jazzed about the lands because I think they said they had ADHD or spectrum of some kind. And they were just talking about how it's not a hurdle that they can't overcome, but sometimes just having more detail in their hand can kind of trip them up. So like having planes instead of just white mana, and having to or having different art for the planes. And I'm sure that they have ways that they've dealt with it because they obviously play Magic, but they were just really excited by the fact that now there were just like there's no decision. It's just very straight. Here's the mana symbol. Just put it on the table. Don't even need to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they admitted like they're pretty sure that's not why Wizards designed it that way. They're just like, this is a really cool unintended consequence of this style of art, is that it will just make it easier for them to look at their hand and immediately make decisions.
Yeah. So I'm the grognard here who wants it to be the confusing, obtuse, as opposed to the easily understandable, readable format. Also colorblind. I just had this thought.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that does make it easy is like, oh, this is red. So that it's
That
easy for me
clear
to understand
symbol.
even without the big symbol on there, but that could be. So yeah, I could see it definitely as something that helps people out.
I mean, there are like that's the difference between a lot of people. More people are more theater of the mind, and more people are like, I need a clear thing to assign this to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You
some
know?
people do love that the art. Like, I mean, one of the things that I loved about Ice Age, I remember when I got into it, was that all the lands were snow covered. I loved when a new set would come out, and it would be like, what are the swamps in this plane like? Like, I think that was a thing that I really liked about
Yeah.
Ravnica or whatnot. I was like, you know, what is the white mana source for this plane? You know, it might be planes, but
Yeah.
what do they look like here? How are they different?
That's the thing too. It communicates a lot of the flavor of the universe because you don't always see the background in such detail. So, for example, if you have chunks of land floating in the
Like
sky,
Zendikar, yeah, like
Yeah.
the weirdness about that.
yeah,
side.
everything's artifacts. You know, it's in a city or it's very jungle setting. You can learn a lot by looking at the lands.
Well,
Also-
but like I mean, it's worth noting that we're talking a lot about this.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
these are just the special lands in the collector's boosters.
Yes.
So they're not in any way leaving any of that like world building potential behind. It's just
Yeah.
another weird kind of foil version that you can mess around with.
Yeah.
It's crazy how specific people get about their lands, and I say this as a person
Yeah, I was about
who
to
is
say.
like that. I know because I also like. I'm not a huge fan of full art lands. I like the old school, what I remember from my childhood.
Yeah.
of
And I
the
love
land.
full art lands. Like you don't need to tell me that tapping it adds whatever to the mana pool.
Yeah.
I get that. The more you want to give me that cool art, because I think the full art land for like mountains,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
just looks amazing.
Yeah, for the unstable ones, if you think of the one that's like just like a mountain in the background, there's some really cool ones that came out recently.
But speaking of all these, like now that they're introducing a lot of these foil cards, what do you think on production line? Like, how is that going to work? Is there, you
Yeah,
know?
so there is actually, speaking about these new lands, an issue that
Oh.
we think it's important to bring up. So for the Buy a Box promos for Magic the Gathering, which in case you don't know, Buy a Box promo, if you are very fancy and special and first in line to buy boxes at retail, you'll get special cards right
Yeah,
after
so this
the
is
release.
if you're buying a box of boosters,
Yes.
not boosters.
Yes, box of boosters specifically. So the Buy a Box promo has been going on for a while. There's an issue with the Theros Buy a Box promo in that these special lands were supposed to be one of the promos included with the Buy a Box promo, but they were supposed to be foil and they are not. So
Uh-oh.
Like production errors happen.
Yeah, they do happen.
This seems like a big one, though. I mean, it seems like a thing you just look at, is it shiny or not? Like, you proof the sheet. It's like, not shiny, send it back. I mean, the biggest thing about this is they're being very clear that you will get your foils, like, you are still owed it. And it's tough, too, because this is the first people who get this. There's no way to fix it at this point for the actual promos. So it falls on the shoulders of retail to deal with this and make sure that the customers eventually will get the foil versions, because they'll be shipped to the retail store, and then the retail people kind of have to
Yep.
manage reaching out to all those people.
So if you're one of those people who likes getting buy a box promos, or you were
Yes.
planning on getting for this, just be aware that you'll probably have to jump through a couple more hoops,
Yeah. Yes.
and that you probably want to be a little more patient with your local store than you
Exactly.
would normally have to be, because they're going to have to go through the process of sorting who is supposed to get them, tracking that, making sure they ultimately get them, and then keeping track of the distributing them properly.
Yeah, and it's good to know too, just because a lot of retailers are on the ball, but for whatever reason, maybe it's a staff member who didn't get the memo, maybe things weren't communicated, so the depending on what store you go to, they might not even know. So you might have to come there armed with this information, so be more proactive about it. And it can be really tough for retailers to manage this sort of like individual cards, like, oh, I gotta take your name, gotta contact you. So yeah, be patient with them.
Yep.
Be nice to your retail
Yeah.
stores, please.
Well, it's probably also, this is also the season where I think it would behoove us to remind everyone to be nice to your retail.
Yes.
Yes.
It just
even
has
more so.
Even
Yeah.
more so,
Because
yes.
chances are there are people watching who haven't finished all of their holiday shopping.
Yep.
Ah, yes.
So,
Having worked at Mox Boarding House during the holidays, I can just say that it
is
gets
the most
pretty
pleasant
crazy.
time of the year?
Yes, the most wonderful time of the year.
I mean, other than, of course, errors that we're talking about pleasant time of the year, there might be actually new, non-scheduled pleasant times of the year, I guess that's the best. Segue.
Yeah.
So, more magic news.
More magic news.
More magic
yes.
news. Magic is dropping schedules for banned and restricted updates. This is a big deal. This is something that has been for, I didn't actually look up how long the official banned and restricted announcements have been going on, but for
It's been quite a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
for as long as in recent history, like every year there's been a schedule where certain times per year, that's when the bans are going to happen. And outside of some catastrophic emergency, there are no bans outside of that. And the
Do you,
reason,
do you know what that schedule was? Do you have it off the top of your head?
yeah, I think it was,
I'm just curious, like how often it was.
yeah, it was either once a month. I don't think it was as often as once a month. I think it was once like every
once a
2 or 3
quarter?
months. Once a quarter, I think sounds
Yeah.
right. And the reason that they had such a structured schedule is because people invest a lot of money into Magic cards, and when you ban a card, it's dead.
Yes.
You know, if you kill it from the format, it can go from $40 a card to $0 a card.
Oof.
And if you're playing a play set of 4 cards, you can easily drop $160, $200 just on the 4 cards of that type. So, you know, having a schedule for banned and restricted is
Having some reliability.
Yeah,
yeah. So it's like, okay, you know, even if this card is banned, the bannings aren't going to happen for another couple of months. So I'm going to have time to play with these cards and
Yeah.
sell out of them, you know, and protect my investment a little bit. But now they're doing away with all of that and saying it will be on a Monday. So any given Monday could be the day when your favorite Magic card gets banned.
I mean, well, I know your opinions about it because you do play Magic regularly. What about you, Derek? You don't play Magic regularly. What do you feel about this kind of like?
Sounds great.
Oh, it sounds great. Well,
Sounds great.
Love it.
Love
Well,
it.
it's- yeah,
Well, yeah, because you
like-
don't have hundreds of dollars
Well,
invested
there's
in
that,
decks.
but it's also like the longer you take to balance the product you put out, the longer you have to potentially deal with an unbalanced state. So like I probably interact with this a little bit more with Warhammer.
Yeah.
You're kind of talking about it's another game
Yes.
that has a very competitive scene, and they do have effectively a twice a year kind of balance sweep. When a new game comes out, they'll do like errata a little bit afterward, and that will sometimes adjust a few things. But they really only look at like the points values for each unit twice a year. So what that means is that if like the balance just came out and a new book just came out and the book is broken,
Yes.
and this is not an uncommon occurrence, then that faction just kind of runs roughshod over the meta for the next 6 months. And on the one hand, you know, you could say, well, that's good because it makes the meta constantly shifting. But on the other hand, it kind of feels like it's just the pendulum is just kind of swinging all around, and you have to wait a long time to get relief from that pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the more that we get into like almost like a video game thing of here's the weekly patch notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think that's generally better for things because, you know, it also kind of means that people have less of an incentive to constantly chase that meta if they feel like, if everyone's like, yeah, this is broken, it's going to get fixed, and you think that that fix might come in 2 weeks, maybe you're not going to spend as much money chasing down that meta,
Yeah.
which might help kind of contain it even before it's banned.
Right.
Yeah.
Because people might, knowing that it could happen, could even, as you said, protect the meta even further because people aren't going to invest as heavily. And because right now with these broken cards, people just swing into these things, and you see even a week after a new set is released, just 80% of the decks have Oko in them, for example. So and as someone who plays and wants to have fresh, interesting matchups, it's especially like the cards in particular from Throne of Eldraine have been incredibly pushed, and there's been a lot of bans, and there's even stuff still in there that feels a little bit broken. So I am happy to see it, and I play mostly on Arena too, so I'm not investing as much money in individual cards, because you just have access to pretty much every card as long as you're regularly putting money or doing your quests.
And I think Arena makes a good point where I think that's especially important to be able to have faster responses.
Yes.
So like it feels to me like they need to be agile to respond to the digital environment where games and tournaments are happening constantly.
Yes.
And they want to keep both expressions of the game pretty much in unison and synchronized.
Yes.
So they don't want to have a separate ban list for the two games.
Okay.
So this kind of seems to be the natural way to accomplish that. And it doesn't seem particularly bad to me unless you were the kind of person who really liked chasing that meta. Which I'm sure
you're a terrible person.
Well,
it ruins it for everybody.
You like that kind of churn.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly people who do, but I don't think that they're the majority.
And we have here as a quote, Duke, I think that would be Duke Reed, also said the removal of scheduled announcements was made to help prevent decreases of physical tournament attendance, because this is an issue too, right? If you can't afford to buy into that $300-400 meta deck, and you know that 80% of the decks are that, you're not going to go to the tournament because you have no chance, and that's really, it's not good for anyone.
Or you just, the color that you're running just can't deal with Oko.
Yeah.
So do you don't want to play a different color, so you just don't go to the tournament because you don't have an answer to it.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think it's going to be good and healthy. I'm very interested to see how it will affect the market.
Yeah, definitely see if there's any growth and see how tournaments come out after this.
Absolutely.
Speaking
of something that is old that's coming up and new.
Everything that is old is new again.
Yeah.
Old is new again. I think, Derek, you have some very exciting news about Dune.
I hope you all like Dune because you're getting more of it.
Oh.
Yep. So if everybody remembers, Dune, a very classic board game, kind of a white whale that a lot of board game players were always hunting down, was re-released by Gale Force 9. It was very well received. It's been very popular so far.
Yes.
Apparently enough so that they have announced a new expansion that will be coming out. I think they've said a target of Q2 in 2020. So not too far away. And it's going to add 2 new factions, which theoretically means you can get your Dune game up to 8 players if you want to sit around the table for that long.
Yes.
But it's going to add the Ixians and the Tleilaxu.
Okay.
Ixians being like the super technologically advanced cyborg princess thing that they got going on.
Yeah.
Cyborg princess, murder ladies.
Yep, cyborg princess. Well, it's Dune, so everyone's a murder lady.
Everybody's murder lady at a certain point. They sniff water and then become murder ladies.
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, that's the Cliff Notes version of Dune: is sniff water, become murder lady. Well, I mean, it's not incorrect.
wrong.
Yeah,
So
see? So I don't
not
know what you're
disputing.
fighting me about.
I mean, you either get murdered or become murder lady. That's the harsh world of
Yeah.
Dune.
Yep.
And the Tleilaxu are the kind of strange, weird, genetically manipulating clone people. Both of those factions become much bigger in the later books. Like, they're not in the first book of Dune.
Yeah.
They're referenced or important in the second, and then they kind of grow in importance in different parts of the series.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've seen this game around in retail, sitting around. I've heard things about it. For me, it's a 40-year-old game. Like, how good can it possibly be? What is it
Apparently
about
real
this?
Great. So the core game also was a lot of the concepts were released by, I think, as Res Arcana.
Okay. Yeah.
So like it's been alive. It's kind of endured. It is one of the first, or one of the best, like highly complicated asymmetrical faction power political backstabbing manipulation games.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's a territory control game. You're trying to take over territory. You want to control a certain amount of Dune, Arrakis, to win.
Okay.
And you can forge alliances to do it. And you have to kind of manage your economy a little bit to fund your troops on the planet, to fund your wars. And every time you go into battle, there's a reasonable chance that somebody at the table has turned one of your agents against you and can make the battle go poor. Like, so there's a lot of like
Intrigue.
there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of
Inquisition.
alliance building. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
Yes.
If you like complicated-y, backstabby games, all in.
Okay.
If you don't, like, don't go that route. You will not enjoy.
I guess because you're a game designer and you've sold a lot of games before, like, you know, you've been in retail.
Yeah.
How, like, from a retail and game designer perspective, this game is essentially getting a revival. What do you think about, like, you know, something that, like, hasn't been around and hasn't been updated since, like, 40 to 35 years? Like, from that perspective, are you excited about maybe a renaissance of board games?
Yeah, well, we have companies like Restoration Games who are, and this one isn't from Restoration
No,
Games.
this is from Gale Force.
Yeah, but there's companies very much bringing back these games into this environment when there are already so many games, and they're playing off of the nostalgia to sell the game.
So Restoration, I think, has taken an interesting approach to it because Fireball Island
Yes.
kept the old theme. So you could definitely say Fireball Island is playing off nostalgia.
Yeah.
But a lot of their other games, they're not keeping the theme. And they are completely reskinning it. They're just taking what they believe to be like a very classic, good design
Yes.
and giving
Yeah.
it a new shot. So, you know, there's two different approaches for the old stuff. And I think it's very healthy that somebody in the industry is starting to kind of look back at old games and be like, hey, with all the churn of games that have happened over the past 30 years,
Yes.
which do we feel are good enough that we want to bring back in some capacity?
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching old movies, black and white movies. Like, you go back and watch and you see they're just so different and fascinating. And there's stuff that's broken. You know, there's design problems that we've solved and certain things like, well, this just takes forever and it's not that good.
Yes.
But there's something, and this is we're talking with Richard Garfield in the Fireside episode about playing Cosmic Encounters, and there's just some things about those games, like a lot of modern games are very tuned and balanced and, you know, maybe a little bit flat. And these games, because just hearing you talk about Dune, I'm guessing it's the kind of game where you can just get screwed. Like, you can get wrecked because someone just doesn't like your face.
Well, not only that, but like one of the factions has the power that at the start of the game, they write on a piece of paper which faction will win and on which turn. And if that happes, they win instead.
Oh.
So you can steal someone's victory from them.
So, like, if you're the Bene Gesserit and you say, hey, Atreides wins on turn 4. If Atreides wins on turn 4, they don't, you do.
But that's you just write on a piece. That's not the mechanics. You don't do.
But you know what you're going to be. So then you try to really push Atreides to not win before turn 4.
And then make them win.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very
But
sneaky.
maybe it's a shared victory that we win together.
Not anymore.
No,
Not anymore.
It's
you can make an alliance and win together.
Okay.
It's just a little harder than winning.
The
Anyway.
spice can't be shared, Emma. The spice can't.
So, but I think the interesting thing with Dune in particular, with its history and stuff like that, is that it was a game that was strong enough and had a strong enough player base that fans were still kind of like coming out with expansions and modifying rules and stuff. So there's a wealth of that's out there, and some of that Gale Force 9 drew upon when they released the new edition.
Yeah,
Okay.
people were printing it, or like they were making the game.
That's how I got my copy.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's give the fans what they want, give the people what they want.
The expansion Spice Girls play in Dune because of the Spice
Or
Girls.
is
The spice. Wait, what?
The
Yeah,
spice.
so chat
Yeah,
was like,
chat was
they need Spice Girls to play Dune. So
Yeah.
clearly
Yeah.
that is the how to play live Let's Play
Yes.
version of the Dune
Spice
board game.
Girls, make it
So-
happen.
So this expansion has some stuff that was published previously.
Yes.
The two factions were published like in a magazine supplement, apparently.
Which again is so old school, right? Your components are in a magazine, a physical magazine.
Yeah. So it will be interesting to see what they change from those, because I hear some grumbling that they weren't super balanced.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if Gale Force 9 is able to update those. And they did say that it will include these factions and more. So it may also include some other game modes or other tweaks to play with.
Okay.
It'll be
Yeah.
curious. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Ooh, definitely look forward to that. I know that we're probably going to get it Because we do actually have the number of players to play at least the basic game, but now we have to, if we get the expansion, then we're gonna like, wait, we need to have more friends.
It's gonna be
Because it's not a 1 through 7 players. It's a you have to have this number game.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like I think you want at least 4 players.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably want to get 5 or 6. I don't know if you want to go to 8.
Ugh,
We'll see.
that's a lot of people.
But it's also this is the game we're playing for the evening kind of game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I would play it. I would play it. I don't want to buy it because everyone has it. So I'm just like, I want someone to invite me. Invite me
Or
to play
we
Dune.
could
I will play
just
Dune.
have the game here. That's an
for
idea.
5 hours.
I feel like you keep suggesting things.
Always just suggesting things. Oh, speaking of fandoms getting something that they would like coming up and coming.
And also
Emma.
hate.
And hate. Also, love hate. Love hate.
Because
Tell
they
us.
hate everything. Everyone hates everything.
Oh, yeah, because it's the internet.
Yeah.
So you can love/hate this. Emma, you got some news about love hate?
Adventure Zone board game details have been released. So Twogether Studios, that's TWO, Twogether Studios, honey, it's great, which is Keith Baker and Jen Ellis, are releasing a new Adventure Zone Bureau of Balance board game. Twogether Studios, known for, well, Keith Baker specifically, known for Gloon, Eberron, a bunch of other games that they have. Illimat is one of the recent ones as well. So they are working with this really cool IP that like has a great fandom. People love Adventure Zone. In case you somehow haven't heard of it, which I hadn't really heard of it. It's only just recently I've seen it everywhere. I'm like, what is this thing?
I had no clue about
It's
it.
a comedy and adventure actual play podcast, loosely based on D&D. So you were saying, for example, one of their dads was on at one point, had no idea. So
I think he played for a long time.
yeah. So potentially the DM actually knows how D&D works, but everyone else is just kind of like.
Well, it was very much like it's very familiar to it, but I don't think that they were rigorously following all the rules. I think they basically used the rules that they wanted to, and then just had fun.
Yeah.
Which, shockingly, is kind of what you're supposed to do.
What? Wait, but no, but there's a rule here that I have
intended
to do the thing.
Nope.
Nope. It's called.
I have to.
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
It's house
cool.
rules.
But it says in the book that
Well, so I think it actually came up on Twitter. Jeremy Crawford or somebody was like, yeah, it also says like, I think in the first or second paragraph of the book, it was like, here are the rules. Use the ones you want.
Yeah.
I like that.
Nobody reads that part,
Yeah.
right? I think it's great, especially for an actual play podcast, because it turns out some of the rules are not super fun and interesting if you're sitting on a podcast. Like, for example, if you have to just keep rolling dice and everyone misses, and that's your podcast for 2 hours, maybe not the most interesting.
Well, one presumes that you would then make that ridiculous comedy of errors as your badass heroes
Yeah.
can't hit a damn thing. Turn that into something fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
But, so Adventure Zone is the McElroy brothers, who are famous from My Brother and Me,
Yeah.
the podcast and the TV show, and the weird animations you'll find on the internet.
Yeah. So for the board game specifically, it takes place in a dungeon. Players need to overcome challenges, randomly generated. It's a cooperative storytelling game. So it sounds like, and this is, again, perfectly in line with what Twogether Studios is known for. So even, being pretty fresh to Adventure Zone, not having listened to an episode yet, although I want to remedy that, I'm excited. I think this could be a really cool game. I think we need more cooperative storytelling games in the world.
I think fans of the show, I think, are going to be really jazzed.
Yeah.
Ooh, so look forward to that.
And should be in trade in August of 2020. So they already
Which suggests to me Gen Con release.
Ooh.
Is this our?
Yes, Gen Con release. It's a pretty good one. Then we can get shirts like this.
With
this. Oh wait, no, that wouldn't be good. I just realized.
Anyways.
I didn't say anything.
Oh no, but I was just on.
Anyway.
Yes. Anyways, speaking
Up
of
next.
that, yeah. Like with speaking of, I feel like with Twitter, like going like this, we're gonna go like this.
Sure.
And then
Right
with
there.
intrigue. What do you know about intrigue and stuff that's happening?
Do I know about intrigue
Do
and
you
stuff?
know?
No, I don't, but I love
Derek's
You love it
Derek's not
anyways.
into
it
that.
anyway. Kind of my thing.
Kind of like
Plans
your
within
thing.
plans. That might
Plans
be why I
within.
love Dune so much.
What game do you like that happens to like a lot of intrigue and evil, backstabbing, but political in
And that
some
isn't
ways.
Dune?
That isn't Dune.
Vampire.
Ooh,
Vampire.
vampires.
So, the big news for Vampire is twofold. There's 2 big new books coming out for Vampire 5th that I'm real jazzed about. One of them is the Fall of London campaign.
Yes.
And that's being produced by Modiphius. And it's a whole campaign set in London in 2012 when the Second Inquisition comes and basically just cleans house and kills most of the vampires in the city. So you're playing through that as agents, it seems to be, working for or against Mithras, who is a very famous NPC in the setting. He's like an ancient Roman vampire who's ruled England for a very long time. Was thought repeatedly thought dead, had a cult, came back. It's kind of his thing. So you are kind of playing a group who can either help him rise back to power or try to stop him from doing that.
Okay.
But it's particularly interesting, I think, because Vampire does not have a history of campaigns.
No.
So it's not like D&D 5th, where they've been really focused on every year there's a new big hardcover that kind of everybody plays through. There's a lot of shared experience there.
Okay.
Vampire was always very much, you go make your own city, play your own story.
Right.
And there was not a ton of guidance on that. It made it very difficult for people who were new to the game to really get into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were a couple adventures that came out. Some of them were better received than others, but not a ton there. So to have this be one of the first books coming out for 5th is very interesting, and it's a divergence in my mind. Plus, this is also an adventure that ties into some of the big meta plot changes. So the Vampire 5th itself, weirdly, is set after this book. So a lot of because in Vampire 5th core book, London has already fallen.
Okay.
So this is kind of a chance for you to maybe bridge an old campaign to a new one, or play through some of the meta plot. So you could view this as both an example of how do you run a campaign in Vampire, but also how do you run a campaign in a setting or in a game that is very meta plot heavy. And if anybody's not familiar with that, it means that when a new book comes out, things change in the world.
Right.
So like in D&D, when the new D&D book comes out, when a new book of spells comes out, the world doesn't usually fundamentally change.
Yes.
The adventure might do something, but that's kind of separate. Whereas Vampire, a new book comes out, and the Vampire 5th comes out. Everything's changed over the past 25 years. A lot has happened. We talked about that a little bit before, but meta plot has always been a part of Vampire. It's always been kind of almost one of those, more people buy the books to read them than they do to play them, so you're trying to kind of keep up with the meta plot.
Yeah.
And the question of how do you use it in a game has always kind of been in discussion forums.
Okay.
And this is an interesting, it seems like they're trying to take a chance to show how you could do that.
Through having a pre-built campaign for it.
It's got some pre-generated characters and stuff like that too, so it does seem like they're also going to come out with a player's guide and I think some starter kits. It seems like Modiphius is looking at this a little more it seems like people are kind of getting into it again. There's a new video game coming out for it. It's getting licensed in a bunch of different places.
Okay.
We need to provide tools for folks who are not used to this kind of game to get up to speed with it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a lot. It sounds like the kind of game you really have to keep up with and keep reading the books.
Historically, it has been.
Yeah, for D&D, you played D&D 20 years ago or whatever, and you play again, you're like, oh, I remember Waterdeep or whatever. It's easier to hop back into it as opposed to, well, now everything's changed. Everything's different. Everything.
So that's up for pre-order.
Yes.
And if you pre-order, you get the PDF, so you can theoretically start playing it right away.
Oh.
Fun.
It's good to have nice new releases that come down.
So the other new book coming out is Cult of the Blood Gods.
Okay.
And this is from Onyx Path, and this is on Kickstarter now. And this is the book that is kind of like the other thing I really like about Vampire. So not just intrigue, but weird warped religions.
Cults.
Cult.
Yes.
It's a cult.
So this is the first time they've done a big book that's just trying to cover as many vampire religions as possible. So it has Gehenna cults, it has the Bahari who worship Lilith, it has the Cainite heresy, which is this very bizarre Gnostic vampire thing. And I imagine that the Sabbat was a very religious faction, so I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of splinter groups from there and there.
Okay.
So this is going to be the weird vampire, strange culture stuff that I love. Plus, it's also the first time that Vampire 5th is going to have rules for the Giovanni clan, which is all the necromancers, and somehow they've managed to take all the Giovanni, the Cappadocians, the Semeti, the Harbingers of Skulls, all that, which none of you have any awareness of,
No.
and made them one clan.
That seems weird.
Yeah, sure.
It is, because especially the Giovanni became a clan by eating the Cappadocians.
Okay.
Oh,
So the
seems
Cappadocians are extinct, except the Harbingers of Skulls and the Semeti might be their surviving descendants, who always... It's a vampire,
feel like-
shockingly, has a weird political structure to it.
wow, there's like a lot. I feel like I'm going to a history class or something like
Yeah.
that.
I
Well,
think it sounds interesting.
It sounds
It's like
interesting.
reading a
It's
book.
just I just like, can
Yeah.
I watch the movie and
Oh,
see
yeah,
the cliff
actually.
notes?
You would be amazed at how much history you end up picking up by reading vampire books.
like real history.
Like
not
real-
just-
Yeah. Yeah. Suddenly,
Nice.
like the year, I know a lot more about the 1100 and 1200s
Okay.
than I would have otherwise thought.
I do. Do they have like just YouTube video cliff notes?
Yeah,
I'm sure
cliff
they have
notes. Do
something.
they
You
have
just
like
watch it.
explain the lore?
Kinda.
with cool animations?
Yeah,
And funny
oh,
humor.
Not so much animations.
Okay.
Richard Dawkins, the I think the creative director at Onyx Path, has a series of YouTube videos that are really cute and endearing, I think.
Oh,
Where
okay.
he pretends to be like an elder vampire who's teaching a new vampire about the
Aw,
world.
that's
Wait.
really sweet.
But isn't like lore-wise, like vampires always supposed to be like the alpha, and they don't really like new
Kinda.
vampires?
Yes. Well, in the sense that like older vampires are always manipulative and evil and mean.
Oh.
So yes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he's basically like, hey, you're a dumb new vampire. I'm going to teach you this stuff, and then you're going to owe me a favor later. So
That
he
seems
does some
par for
very
the
cute
course.
videos. Though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think chat was trying to help us out. They said that they're the UN of necromancy. That's how to think of it.
Sure.
The UN of necromancy.
We'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
But it's just the real question of like, Giovanni have been doing it for a long time. All these other factions literally are persecuted by the Giovanni, and to the point where they consumed their souls to become the clan they are, and now they're all in a family together. So like this is, as a person who's like Metaplot, you're like, that's weird. How could that ever possibly happen? Give me the book because I want to find out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, there's a 50-50 shot. You'll think, no, that's dumb, or you might like it. But it's always like, this is a weird thing that happens in your campaign. Figure out how you make it work for your campaign. I don't
Okay.
know.
Sounds
right.
like a very awkward family reunion. It's like,
Very
remember that
awkward.
time I consumed your soul?
So you joke about that, but the Giovanni are also the clan that only embraces within its family and is super inbred.
Oh.
So like you are coincidentally going fantastically right to the core of the Giovanni.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some stuff in there.
There's a lot. I think we're gonna be like going too far down that rabbit hole if we try to go more into like the what is it? What's the word? When you're a king, it's an A word. Aristocracy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, words are hard. But guys, that was our headlines. Did you know that? That we're done with headlines?
What's next? What
What's
comes
next?
after
Hold on.
headlines?
After headline. Hold on. Let me switch. Riffs. Oh wait, I realize that I am in a mic.
Tangle yourself up.
I need
yeah.
to detangle myself. So, Christian isn't here, but don't worry, it's okay. I'm the bundle boss now.
Bundle.
This hat made me bossy.
That you spun and turned into Christian.
I
got
did.
It. I
It's
got
the
it.
hat.
It's
so
the
it's
hat.
like Mario, and
Yeah.
Mario is Christian is
Yes.
the hat, and he's
Yeah.
taken over.
He's taken over.
It puts its tentacles into your brain.
It's you, Christian.
I'm a Christian. But also, fun news. As you heard, we've discussed this before that the One Ring has lost their license. at
Not
the-
fun news.
Not fun news.
Very
sorry.
sad news.
Very sad news. The One Ring did lose their license recently, and they're going to be discontinuing this after like the end of
I think it's the middle of 2020.
middle of 2020. So
and
this
and the One Ring is the Lord of the Rings RPG.
Yes,
that
Lord of the Rings.
Cubicle 7 puts out that is gorgeous.
Gorgeous, beautiful.
Does not use the D&D rules because
Nope.
they also make a version that does. But the One Ring specifically, uses its own system.
Yeah.
And Hawk was talking about how good it was for teaching community and like nonviolent solutions and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're protecting your soul from getting eaten away by the darkness, and there's real world consequences for doing bad stuff
Yes.
in that world.
But besides that, we got, if you want to go ahead, we got these bundles for you that we're going to go ahead and talk about. That like how Emma and Derek just explained. It's very like well, you guys already explained it. Don't need to do it again. But in this bundle, we're gonna go ahead. The starter collection is about $19.95, so $20. Like for $20, you can get the One Ring Core rule books, the Lore Master screen, Lake Town Guide, 2 supplement adventures, which is the Adventures Companion and the Journey and Maps. And then if you want to go ahead and upgrade to the bonus at $31.36, that's a very interesting.
Well,
very
the
specific amount.
the bonus always shifts over time. I don't know if you guys noticed that in the bundle folding.
Yeah.
The starter one is always the same price.
Yes.
They set that. But the reason that when you scroll to bonus, it doesn't have a price is that you have to, I think, beat the average cost or the average amount that people have paid for the bundle.
Yeah.
So if you go into the bundle of holding early,
You get better deals.
yes.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's how it works. So
Interesting.
that number will kind of shift over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to upgrade that for about like, for $30 or $32, let's round it up. You get the four more supplements. The what is it called? These are hard words, including the Gareth Ryder her epic campaign of the Dark
Hanrahan. Hanrahan.
Hanrahan. Yeah. Hanrahan.
Yeah.
Epic
That guy.
campaign and the Darkening Mirkwood, and it's accompanied by the Religion Guide of Heart Region Guide of Heart of the Wind. Plus some Rivendell location guides and adventure collection tales from the Wilderlands. Wilderlands. I'm reading great today. But also, it also offers another discount as well. So you can go ahead on get this like discount code good for 30% off for the Cubicle 7 web store. And then just get an extra bonus like off
It's for print copies.
for print copies.
So,
Yeah.
Again, like they're losing the license soon. They're not printing more. I think the core book is already just out of stock. I don't know if they're going to bother restocking it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this is your chance to get
yeah,
it.
like,
yeah,
it's
this
like
is
a-
your
no
chance.
chance.
No chance.
I did check the Cubicle 7 store. I asked at Mox
Yeah.
if they had a copy. They did not.
Oh.
So it was one of those like, do I want to get? I kind of think
Oh,
so,
it's too late.
Too late.
Now you're sad.
But
Sadness.
so if you have the core book but haven't picked up some of the supplements, the 30% I think is going to help you take care of some of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just having these digital assets
Yes.
for the game, you'll be able to play it.
Yeah.
You not having that nice.
I think I'm going to
book
pick it up just to
necessarily.
have them there for reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a gorgeous game. If you like Lord of the Rings at all, you absolutely should get it.
Yeah, if you like it. And then I think there's also another bundle of holding as well that is the One Ring Journey. And that is, that's including, what is it, the Rohan, all this, just more awesome PDFs of fictional names that are very difficult for me to read.
I think
Rohan,
that's-
Erebor, Bree.
Yeah. Most people won't know specifically be looking for one particular thing. If you
Yes.
like Lord of the Rings stuff, just go on
Yeah.
the page and
So
look
basically,
and see
the first collection.
a bunch of good stuff.
Yes.
The first collection is like the core book, the kind of basic stuff you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Journeys collection is several more setting books and I think like 12 adventures.
Okay. All right, that's cool. And the cause, both of these campaigns are going to be donated to the Ocean Conservancy. So if you want to go ahead and, hey, we don't really have that much good water, and we eat a lot of the things from the water, and we use a lot of the water. So
Yeah.
if you want to go ahead and help our water, might want to go ahead and also get a good game.
Yeah.
Hey, Dune taught you water is important.
Water's
Well,
important.
you gotta sniff it.
You gotta sniff it.
Snort,
Snort water.
Sniff the water and become a murder lady.
Yeah, this is a good one. Now that we're done with bundles, guess what? We have to go ahead and ask, my lady,
My lady. Murder
Yes.
lady.
murder lady, can you please tell us about the Kickstarter?
Absolutely. As your Kickstarter queen
Yes.
and as your resident murder lady for this segment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
murder lady. Yay!
Honorary.
Honorary
murder
murder lady.
Honorary murder lady. It seems appropriate that the first Kickstarter can basically be summed up as Dark Souls, the D&D setting.
Sweet.
So it's Kisarta. It's got 1 day left. And basically, if you wanted to play Dark Souls, where you are like this weird revenant spirit in kind of pseudo-hell who is reincarnated and has to go murder people, then here you go.
Damned souls in dark horrors.
Yeah, there you go.
Darkness.
Yeah,
I mean-
so you're in the netherworld,
Yes.
And they've got a whole bunch of new classes and races and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it really boils down to, did you ever want to play D&D Dark Souls? Check it out. If you didn't, I don't think this is going to really change your mind.
It sounds very grimdark. I mean, what about all the fun parts of role-playing games where you go in an inn?
I thought you were like, what about all the fun parts of Dark Souls? Like where you left the graffiti about how someone else, don't worry, this hallway's totally safe, and then they get killed and you laughed?
What? No,
I feel like the power rolling is really the fun part of Dark Souls.
So yeah, you can play power roll in this game. I'm sure there's a
power
feat
roll.
for power rolling.
There's a feat for that, right?
Probably.
No, the
Yeah.
parts where you go to a nice, cozy inn, you sit around drinking mead together.
Yeah, people like you can go play the One Ring, whereas everybody else who wants their spirit
Comes in
crushed
pints?
can go play Casarta.
Okay.
All right, so you
If
got
you want
happiness.
your spirit crushed, this is the game for you.
Yeah.
So it seems a little surreal-ish because again, you're playing spirits in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they're borrowing a lot of like you're just kind of incarnated as this revenant type creature. So. The next one is another RPG. This is Retropunk. It also has 1 day left.
Yes.
And this is another cyberpunk RPG that I am super excited about because it seems to really be, like some of the other ones we've seen recently,
Yes.
really be focusing on the social commentary aspect of cyberpunk.
Oh,
Where you're not just mercenaries in the future with cool toys. You are literally having to basically be digital Robin Hood, where
Yeah.
the only way that you get XP or equipment or things like that is to, fight the man,
Yes.
take their stuff, and give it to your local community. So it seems to be very, very much about the interplay of power between the establishment and the communities that grow to deal with and combat them.
Okay.
So I'm very intrigued by that aspect.
It's very interesting.
I like this idea that you have a big bad or something you're always fighting against, because that is something, if you're doing a regular D&D campaign or whatever, the DM has to manufacture that, and sometimes the players are excited about that, and sometimes they're like, I don't really care about this big bad, they're boring.
Yeah.
To have an organization that you're fighting against, and the community aspect too. Another thing about a lot of role-playing games is like we came together as a group and we didn't really exist before this, and even with backstories, it's hard to really tap into your roots. So having both the roots and the goal in here seems very
It seems like
powerful.
it's baked into the concept of the game.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
like, in playing the game, you're kind of buying into those.
Okay.
So I'm really intrigued to see what they'll do. The system looks like it may be an adaptation of or heavily inspired by Blades in the Dark,
Yeah.
which is also a very, very popular indie game. So I feel like there's a lot of interesting potential here. But Emma, you also had an interesting question about like why it's retro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is retropunk? There's so many names for things. Steampunk, cyberpunk,
Well,
retropunk.
I think they had
Retro
to come, A,
cyberpunk.
they had to come up with a name.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, but B, I think it's just like they're really trying to stylistically hearken to older cyberpunk.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very dystopian, and it's also just the acknowledgement that cyberpunk is totally as much a retro futuristic setting as steampunk
Yes.
basically is
Yeah.
at this point.
It's a Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Judge Dredd. I
Yep.
mean, even to some extent, Fifth Element, right?
Sure.
All of those
Oh,
things.
yeah, the Fifth Element,
Fifth
yeah.
Element, I suppose, is the very is the hopeful non-grimdark side of cyberpunk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was the vision of the future that I was promised as a child, and I am disappointed that never actually came to be.
No, you just get neutral colors and trying to be as thin as possible.
Right.
Every day I wake up and I am sad that I don't have a neural connection of some kind.
Right.
Every day.
And just the fashion, right? I was talking about, I want to walk into like a Macy's or a TJ Maxx or something and just racks upon racks of capes and like
And they're all
see-through
see-through.
jackets and like lasers in my
And
clothes.
now you have to go to like some weird high fashion show for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
I just want everyone to be walking around with these clothes, and I'm working to push it as an individual. But
You definitely appear that way.
well, this is hard. It's a lot of work to get this stuff. I just want it to be like hawkers on the street. Like, here's your laser scarf that flies over your head.
I
or
like
something.
laser
Be the
scarf.
laser scarf you want to see in the world.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
it. Start a movement.
All right, so that is Retropunk.
Yes.
What about Twas?
Twas. Hey, 'tis the season to play a role-playing game where Santa gets kidnapped by the bad Santa Krampus.
Aw.
And yeah, so this basically has 1 day left as well. It's a role-playing game. It can be played over one really long session, or about 5-hour to 8-hour session, or individual sessions that are an
Emma,
hour
pay
long.
attention.
That you gotta wait. We're almost done, and then you can open your presents.
So distracted.
But yes,
You
play
talk about presents. I got
presents. But in this game, Emma, can you get to play toys who save Santa. You
So
can be a stuffed teddy bear.
This is the Rudolph
Yes,
game.
this
The
is
lonely-
Rudolph.
The Island of
The
Misfit Toys.
This is
yeah.
the island
Okay,
of
I'm a
misfit
misfit
toys.
toy.
Yes,
Okay.
you're well.
I
you're
certainly identify with that island more than any other part of that movie, I will give you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of like the Island of Misfits toys, but you're not necessarily the misfits, but you have superpowers.
Ooh.
Because Santa's like, oh no, powers.
Oh wait, so it's also Toy Story.
So it's also
Sure.
Toy Story.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's all the nightmarish kind of things you can think of, but
Ooh.
happy and campy because you wanted happiness, right? So
Or you don't.
Or you don't. It depends.
Or it could be grimdark.
It could be grimdark. I don't know
who's
how
running
this
it.
session
Well, this
ends.
kind of reminds me of the classic indie RPG from back in the day, Puppet Land. I don't know if either of you have heard
That
about
sounds
that.
terrifying.
That sounds.
It is, because
Oh.
you basically play puppets, shadow puppets, sock puppets, or marionettes, or whatever.
Marion.
Puppets are not.
You play puppets in a world where Punch and Judy, I think Punch killed the puppet maker and wears his skin as a mask.
What?
And wears-
even talking about? Now,
No,
why
no,
is
we're
this
playing this
happening?
nice game. Twas is the nice
Great.
game where you're
So,
not.
I will
you're
make a
not
note that
skin
we
puppets.
are playing Puppet Land
Oh
together.
gosh, have you
No.
even seen Toy Story 4? Like everyone, like
No, I haven't.
marionettes
No,
are just
no, wait, no, it's already been long enough. It's
Also,
going
I
in
love
spoilers.
puppets.
not a spoiler. Just marionettes are always terrible and
think-
terrifying. You can't make them not be that way.
No, they're great.
I mean, to be fair, I did own
Goosebumps?
like a puppet. I had a life-size Pinocchio.
Or no, ventriloquist dummies.
Pinocchio? I had a life-size Pinocchio for a while.
Anyway, I like
Yeah.
the Dark Crystal. Puppets are great.
Eh.
And Twas.
Twas, yes, there's just like if you want to go ahead and have a Christmas-themed game, like kind of like a one-shot.
That
but
doesn't involve a puppet wearing human skin.
That doesn't
Unless
involve a
you
puppet
want it
wear.
to.
Unless you wanted to. But I will
Live your
keep
best
note
life, okay?
that it does have, like, you can go ahead to keep the game more, like, in suspense and nobody knowing what happened. You can rotate your GM. It's made to do that, very rules light. One of the questionable things I have is that to keep that improv, like, in your head, they have these decks that you can do different scenarios and everything with. And they don't really explain how that actually works as a mechanic in the game, except for, like, hey, slap a deck down. You got
It's probably like prompt cards.
Prompt
I
cards.
imagine it's going to be like, something because their theme is very, very narrow. So I imagine that you'll flip over a card and it will ask you some pointed questions.
Yes.
Kind of like the Quiet Year or some other improv
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
That's like, Krampus has done this. Like, what happens? Or, the card could just describe a very stereotypical Christmas scene.
Yes.
And you have to run with that.
But yeah, 1 day left to save kidnap the Santa. Oh, well, no, you're not kidnapping the Santa Claus.
There.
You are saving the kidnap.
Kidnap the Sandy
Save-
Claus.
Kill Santa Claus and
That was
take
also
his
the best part of that
place.
movie?
There's
Yeah. All right, but yes, other Kickstarters that we're going through because we need
why
to
can't
open.
anything ever just be nice?
We need to open the presents.
No.
Presents.
No nice.
Presents.
just
So,
happy, just a
yes.
moment of
The next
joy.
Kickstarter, also with 1 day left, is 303 Squadron board game.
Yes.
And this is a cooperative board game about the Battle of Britain. And it's the closest we're going to get to our Kickstarter board game this week. But we're talking about how there's no monsters. It's
Yeah.
not a narrative encounter-based combat game. It's a board or war game where you are playing cooperatively kind of the fleet of aircraft that were defending Britain during World War II.
Yeah, so it's very historical, very much a war game. It also, however, has character cards for individual people. So I see it as a kind of game, that might. A lot of war games just like, I hit your dudes, you hit my dudes, everyone's dead, blah, I win, whatever. Like this one with calling out a little bit, like very historically accurate pictures of people who could have been soldiers in this time period has the potential to be, perhaps a little more emotionally impactful, meaningful combat game.
So, if you're looking for a cooperative kind of war game, I think this might be up your alley.
All right.
Or if you just like moving little plastic planes.
The
around
planes are great, yeah.
Intriguing, you could say.
On a map.
Elementary.
Elementary, perhaps.
Because the next Kickstarter, with 3 days left this time,
Oh.
is Sherlock Holmes Baker Street Irregulars. And this bills itself as a cooperative graphic novel adventure. So it looks like it's a lot of the other Sherlock Holmes games, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective or something like that, where you travel around the map, you find clues, you kind of read sections of dialogue and story, and then you try to figure out what happened. But this one is linked very closely with a graphic novel. So it's a little unclear exactly how it works, but I suspect that you're almost choose your own adventure-y, graphic novel-y, kind of going through a little more visual representation of it.
Okay.
So I think if those previous games intrigued you, but you found walls of text maybe a little intimidating, this might be a much more accessible entry point.
Yeah, this is meant to be a family-friendly game. You play as street urchins, so this is a little bit, yeah. Oliver Twist, orphans on the street. Yeah. And yeah, having it be more accessible, it makes me wonder if it's a pre-made mystery, how replayable it would be. I guess. Like, is it intended to be, you go through the mystery, you solve it?
I suspect that that's the case, because it would be really hard to do it otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's great. You know, the exit games sell great.
Yep.
People really love the Sherlock Holmes mythos.
Well, the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, I like that. Was always kind of a really intriguing idea to me of just dinner entertainment almost. Like have your friend come over, make some dinner, like eat for a little bit, kind of, pass around who has to read sections and take notes, and then over the course of an evening, however long it takes you, you solve a mystery or don't, I guess, but you kind of hang out and talk about something.
And minimal setup, you you can get right to it. So sounds very fun.
I like it, especially that it's family friendly and stuff.
Yeah.
Last Kickstarter that we have today, guess what? As your resident woodworker who's nerd about wood,
So wait, is this official wood approved?
wood approved.
Wood
Wow.
approved?
Wood
I don't think
approved.
we've actually seen wood approved from you yet.
Would approve. Well, I do
a new
look at it like
category
it's a new
for
category.
Kickstarters.
I am now stating the woodness of these games.
The
So-
woodenness is authentic.
A woodness needs to be authentic, but
Can
for this
confirm.
this one is Igbo. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. It's a game about basically growing plants. It's supposed to be themed around sustainability. The boards themselves are made from sustainable wood, probably recycled wood as well. And it's a game where basically you're trying to grow this forest. The game is originally designed in Nigeria as a Nigerian creator. She recently moved to the United States and now has been trying to hey, get this out there for people to learn a little bit more. And I like seeing different cultures bring their own take to board games.
Absolutely.
For this one, it's just that you're trying. It's definitely a very strategy tile laying kind of
It
game.
reminds me a lot of Go.
Yes.
Yes.
Like I think not necessarily in the gameplay, but from a visual standpoint, I think it has a lot of that element of an abstract game. You're laying your tiles down, trying to form patterns, basically.
Yeah. And so what the idea is that you only have a limited amount of tiles to grow this land, and you want to try to grow the biggest trees. And you have to do it in what is this when you're
Orthogonal.
Almost. I think you need to make lines.
you need to make lines,
Groups of
parallel
three
lines.
and then five.
3 and then 5.
Yeah.
So the bigger the trees are, the more points you get versus just planting little tiny trees everywhere. And then you can place desert tiles as well to stop people from growing. So your tree is competing with another tree to grow in this landscape. And it's definitely, if you're into strategy games and want to promote basically games coming from different cultures, this is definitely one of the games you probably want to pick up.
And it does look very nice.
Yeah,
It does.
It looks nice. It looks surprisingly strategic for such. It's a very difficult challenge to make such a simple board game that has such rich interactions between the pieces, but it has a few important characteristics where, for example, once you've made the tree, all of the seeds that were floating around become roots,
Yes.
and that's your position. And we were talking a little bit about how much does it actually capture the feeling of sustainability and limitation of resources.
Yes.
I think it potentially can, because all of a sudden, okay, because there's a win element to it too. You can blow stuff around, have some control, but now you've committed to dedicating your resources to this. You don't have as many resources to work on other things. So
Yeah, I think that was my question, is because the project said that it was designed to like promote sustainability.
Yeah.
And I think the product absolutely seems to do that.
Yeah.
The theme does that. The making sure that the product is manufactured from reclaimed or sustainable wood absolutely does it.
Yes.
But I'm really curious. I would love a chance to play it to see if the gameplay reinforces that, because scarcity I don't think is the same as sustainability.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yes.
So to me, sustainability like requires some sort of cyclical nature, and having a game be competitive, even on that fundamental level, strikes me as undermining the theme of sustainability.
Yeah,
You know
that's a
what I mean?
good
So
point.
like, it's one. This is, I think, the interesting question of when mechanics can support a theme and reinforce a message,
Yeah.
and when they can't. And I think that in an abstract game,
Yes.
it can be very difficult, but very rewarding if you can pull it off.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's just interesting philosophical questions about what does sustainability as a theme mean that honestly we're probably overthinking,
Yeah.
having not played the game
Well,
at all.
it's also
But
probably-
it's a good
Yeah.
question.
Partially
It
a
is.
language thing. I think what it comes from is like this person is a Nigerian environmental advocate, so this is probably something that they saw in Nigeria of scarcity of resources, and they wanted to make things sustainable in order to combat the scarcity of resources. So maybe it's more of a thing is like you feel scarcity and now you understand why sustainability is more important.
All right. I like that. But speaking of not being sustainable, and this paper that you can very
Yes,
easily wrap
as
and throw away and only use once,
Okay.
open your presents. Open your gosh darn presents.
Well, so hold on. For the sake of people in headphones, do we want to have someone go and mute their microphone so that we don't
You can also
kill
just open
that?
it gently.
you just open, just
No,
like
you
open it
can't.
like
No,
this.
you can't. All right.
Derek's a ripper.
You
Well, but
Give
I
us
don't
the
know.
gifts.
Should I
I think we
open
should save
Chris?
that for him.
Okay, save that for
But what I was going to say is you can choose which of us gets to open our present first.
Emma,
Yes.
because she's
All right.
the
You want
most
to mute
excited.
Emma?
So I rip it.
Rip it. Do it.
Rip it, rip it, rip it. Doo-doo-doo-doo. All these I
Okay.
got. Yeah.
See, I told you.
Oh my gosh.
Hand-picked.
Tea Dragon Society. You see, this is perfect.
Yeah. But yeah,
Banzai's got a secret sense for this.
I got a secret sense.
Does she?
And then let's
how,
see.
How,
Yeah.
much?
Let's
How many
see.
vampires and intrigue did you pack into this tiny box?
I don't know. Let's
Murder.
see. Let's see. What?
This is the present you need, not the. Oh.
Yep. Lots of intrigue packed into there.
Yeah.
And I love how you were like, no, I randomly sorted it.
I did randomly sort things. There you go.
Fate clearly decreed.
Yeah.
There
This- I mean,
it
look how
is.
adorable this is.
Yeah,
There you
look
go.
how backstabby this is.
I win. But Christian will not be opening it right now because he's
Because it's
sick.
full of plague.
Yeah.
It's full of plague. It's
also,
full of plague.
we're not going to be back next week, right?
Correct.
Oh.
So Christian
Oh.
won't be able to open it for a couple of weeks.
Oh, won't
Post-Christmas.
be.
We'll just call it his New Year's present.
It's his
Yeah.
New Year's present. Have a New Year's. But yes. And then, of course, the back crew also has gifts that they can just open up. They're just the back crew. We don't need to see them.
There.
But no,
We invited
Wow.
them.
I'm joking.
Wow.
I'm joking.
They declined.
I would like the record to state that the crew were offered the chance to come on camera, and when they realized that it would require them changing the camera angles, they were like, "Yeah, no."
No, don't ban me. I make fun. Cut
They
off.
control your microphone.
They do control my microphone, but you know
They
what?
could make you just not say anything.
You're right, but I got important things to say right now because
You
guess
do.
what? That was TableTakes, given to you by Gen Con TV, Gen Con itself.
That was our present to you.
It's the best present. It is. Also, don't forget that we have the new release rundowns happening after this. Also, we'll have a full schedule. Wait, not this week, probably because it's Christmas, but
Correct.
on this stream, you can see us Mondays with the Brothers Murphs. They're going ahead and playing some games with each other, and then basically like, hey, if you ever wanted to do new release rundown, but actually just focus on one game, definitely the stream you want to watch. And then we also have Fireside on Wednesday with Emma and Peter Atkinson. Sorry, I just spaced.
Most importantly, Emma.
Most importantly, Emma. Yeah, totally. Most importantly, Emma. If you want to go ahead and get a background design, like basically the details about what it is working in the business and all of that
The
jazz.
untold stories behind your
untold-
favorite games.
All the untold stories.
Untold.
And then, of course, every Friday except for next Friday.
Every
But-
other Friday?
Every other Friday? I
No.
don't. Yeah.
Every other Friday would suggest a.
Oh no, but every
Oh,
Friday.
every Friday.
Every
Just be
Friday.
careful. Words mean
Sorry,
things.
Words,
We talked about this.
Words mean things. So every Friday that isn't a holiday-involved week, we got us. We got TableTakes, where we just talk about all the gaming news and be excited and then debate about it.
Well, think of the break as a chance to go back and listen to old Fireside episodes.
Yeah.
Or spend time
Cozy up.
with the YouTube episodes of us.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
We also want to thank Chaldea Studios for giving it this awesome space.
Yes. Thank you very much. And we'll be back in a moment with wait, what are we doing? Oh, we're doing
New release rundown.
New release rundown. I'm really good at this. Happy holidays, everyone.
You clearly just want to go on holiday break.
I
Thank
just
you,
a
everybody.
holiday break. I'm gone. Bye.